Hello and welcome to another Wii review with me, Dave Bignell. Today I'm reviewing Tetris Party for the Wii, and it comes straight from WiiWare. Now, I know I said I was going to review Wii Sports Resort as my next review, but I thought I'd just tuck this one in before I do that review. So here we go, Tetris Party. This has about 1 million different modes on it. Now, the first mode in single player is Marathon, which is your standard Tetris, with a bit of a twist on the Wii having your Miis displayed there as well. So the rules are the same as normal Tetris. You have to get your Tetramino shapey things all fitting together, and when you make a line it disappears. When you make multiple lines, more things disappear and you get more points, you get combos, that kind of thing. Funky original 1985 music going on there, which changes the higher up you get. When you get into sort of panicky near the end of the game, when you're going to fill that bin thing, the music gets faster and a siren goes off, which panics you, which is interesting. Also, you have your Mii displayed while you're playing Tetris, which responds to what you're doing as well. Normally, it's kind of just jogging along there, having fun. When you're getting near the top, it starts to panic, and when you lose, it gets very depressed indeed. The next mode here is Battle, and you can play this as either you in single player against the computer, or against a friend, relative, someone you've met, someone you've taken off the street you wanted to play Tetris with, that kind of thing. So it's either 2 player or 1 player, I should say, but in 1 player you're playing against the computer. Yes. And what you do here is you're both playing Tetris with sort of standard rules, but the difference is here, your game can affect the other player's game. So when you're clearing lines, if you get a few combos, clear a few lines fast, it adds a line to the other player's screen, and vice versa. So basically you have to clear those lines as quickly as you can and add lines to the other player's game, so they will get to the top and lose. This is a lot of fun and gives a whole new twist to Tetris, and just means that you can play it 2 player, or gives you a different variation of the standard single player game. Now, the controls of Tetris are very, very easy on the Wii. You just put the Wii on its side, so it is horizontal, and basically you move left and right to move the block left and right. You press 2 or 1 to rotate the block around. If you press the down button, it makes the block descend slightly faster. If you press the up button, it makes that block crash straight down to the bottom straight away. So if you're absolutely sure of where you want that block without waiting for it to fall, just press up and it crashes down. If you press the A button, it holds that block, and you can have a block in your hold store. So basically, if you get a shape you don't want, and maybe you want to come back to it later, you just hold it holds it for you, and you can come back to that one. And also the B button does something, but I'll get to that because that becomes useful in another mode of Tetris. The next mode here is Field Climber, which is very strange indeed. You're playing Tetris, it's the sort of same setup as Tetris, but you have a little man, or indeed woman, who needs to get to the top. So instead of in Tetris where you want to stop your blocks building up and you want to clear them, in this you want to build your blocks up in a sort of step way so your Field Climber can get to the top. Basically, you have to lay your blocks in a sort of path, and this Field Climber can only climb up a block 1 high each time, so you're building steps for them to get to the top. And on different modes on the way, you have to make them get to certain flags where you can collect items that can help you get your Field Climber to the top quicker, all sorts of things like that. Also, make sure you don't trap your Field Climber, so if you put a block above them, they get stuck, and the only way to get them out is to clear the line like you would do in a normal Tetris game. So you have to make a line and then it will disappear, and then you can continue your Field Climber on their way. The next mode here is Shadow, where you're given a shadow on your Tetris bin thing, and you have to fit the shapes into the shadow to replicate the picture. So on this one, for instance, you have to make an apple. Now, I've seen some people on YouTube do this in one go, and they can just put the pieces together and make the picture. Well done, you. I find this very hard. Perhaps I just don't have that sort of logical brain to fit all the pieces together perfectly, 100%, but obviously the more you match the picture, the better score you get. Also, if you're given a shape that you can't seem to fit into the puzzle, you can skip it, but you're only allowed to skip 10 of your shapey Tetramino things, so make sure you use that skipping wisely. Another Tetris mode is Stage Racer, where you're given a Tetris block and you have to race it through a maze, which scrolls upwards. It really reminds me of a very old game from the 80s, so that's good. There's a bit of nostalgia, retro feel there, all sorts of words you can use there. And basically, yeah, you have to twist your shape around and you have to move it down the maze. Very difficult, yet again, another different way in which you can play Tetris. I really do think people at Tetris HQ were stroking their beards and thinking, how can we make as many modes as possible on Tetris? What ideas do we have? And they've really come up with almost everything you can imagine. And the very next mode is probably the most unique, particularly for the Wii, that I could think that they could have thought of. That's a lot of thinking. And the next mode, of course, is the Wii Balance Board Tetris, where you play Tetris while standing on the Wii Balance Board. They certainly went to town with this one. At first, this takes a lot of getting used to, I think. I find this very hard to get used to initially, but after a few tries, you find yourself getting into the groove, as it were. Now, as you can see, they've given you not as many... the blocks are much simpler here and not as many lines to fill because it can be quite difficult to move those blocks on the Wii Balance Board. So what you do on the Wii Balance Board, you move left to move the block left, you move right to move the block right, you lean backwards to make it fall faster, and you squat to turn the block around. Now, the squatting can be very difficult because when you squat, you can also tend to lean backwards, so while turning the shape around, you can also make it hurtle downwards much quicker than you'd like. I really like this mode. This is very good. It's very hard to play it for a long time because your legs start to feel like they're going to fall off, but it's a really original mode. It's great fun, and it's absolutely mad. All of these modes, except the Wii Balance Board mode, can be played in multiplayer, either with your friends, with other Wii remotes, or with computer players. Or you can go on the internet and play online all of these modes with lots of other people all over the world, and you realise how bad you are at it and how good they are. But yes, it's really good. You can do all these different things. The mode that's showing right now is a form of battle mode. You can play it against 2, 3 or 4 people or computers or variations of that. And what happens here is when you're playing, not only does your game affect the other player's game when you clear lines, you also collect items. Now, these items appear on Tetramino blocks, and if you manage to clear a line with that item in it, which is represented with a cross, you get an item. And this is where you use your B button. So you collect an item and you press B and it uses it. Now, there are lots of different items here. There are ones that clear all your lines, so they help you. There's ones that make things happen to the other people's games. For instance, you can make their game run really fast, or you can freeze a block so they can't turn it around. All sorts of different items that can either assist you or attack the other players. And of course, they can use them against you. And it's just a different game of Tetris as well, so just adding a few features there. Also, there's a 2-player mode where you don't compete against each other, you're playing with each other cooperatively. And with this mode, you get a massive great bin and you have to help each other out, filling it and completing the lines. Now, there is a 1-player version of this where you're playing with a computer, but I would advise don't play it because it doesn't work very well, because, of course, the thing about working cooperatively is you need to talk to the other person. You can't do that on the computer unless you're a robot yourself. So they'll just keep putting blocks down places and they might not necessarily be where you want to put them. It just doesn't work very well. It's best on 2 players. So this is co-op mode. The graphics on Tetris Party are very simple, but they needed to be because it is just a sort of straightforward 2D puzzler type of game. They have tried to make up for this a little bit though by putting your Mii in there, so that's a nice touch. There's also some different backgrounds on different stages. For instance, on Shadow, there's an interesting background where you get some camels riding behind, that kind of thing. It's just there for a bit of a laugh and just to make it look a bit more visually pleasing. The music is the classic 1985 Tetris song. It's very good, but when you sometimes play the marathon mode for hours and hours on end, you just cannot get that tune out of your head, so that's a bit annoying. There are other music tunes that come up on different modes, and for instance on Stage Racer you get a song that sounds like you'd hear it in an Indian restaurant, which is always interesting. Not sure if that was the intent, but it always makes me want a curry when I'm playing that mode. Maybe that's just me. See if that happens to you when you play Stage Racer. In conclusion, on the positive side, the people at Tetris Limited, or whatever it is, have really thought of every conceivable way in which you can play Tetris, including the very unique Wii balance board mode, which I just think is absolute genius. Like I said, hard to get used to at first, but after a bit of perseverance, it is a lot of fun. So lots of hours and hours and hours and hours of gameplay here. On the negative side, if you don't like Tetris, you don't like puzzles, then steer clear of this. This is the worst game for you. So it's just one of those things, you're either going to really like it or really not like it. The other negative side, it's quite expensive. It's 1,200 points, which is one of the most expensive games on WiiWare. But if you're a big fan of Tetris, big fan of puzzles, want to waste away hours and hours looking at coloured blocks and try and fit them together, this is the game for you. I give this a 7 out of 10. Please subscribe to my Wii channel on YouTube for more Wii reviews.